Hi, my name's Thomas. I'm the guest blogger for ReMode, and today I'm joined by the very, very talented David Black from House of Black. Hi, David.
Hi guys.
Thanks
Hi,
for
how are you
joining
doing?
us today. Nice, very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. I'm keeping cozy and warm, just trying to warm up in the snow.
Could you start off by telling us a bit about where you're from and how you became interested in fashion and textiles?
Oh, that is an existential question. But yeah, so I'm 31. I'm based in Glasgow, born and bred. I studied fashion. Although I've been designing since I was 14. But I studied fashion. I think I graduated when I was 22. Took a couple of years, just kind of, feel myself, do what, go through. I think I worked in like theater, I worked in fashion, teaching, just trying to like work out what I wanted to do. And then I went and did my master's degree. And then that was kind of where I found sustainable fashion. And that's kind of where my real passion for kind of sustainable fashion began. And then I graduated and started my little business, and here we are, House of Black.
So, like, where would you start your design process then when you're kind of thinking about making clothes?
Well, yeah, so when I started using recycled materials, it kind of was reverse engineering a bit, which can be a difficult mindset to transform into if you're particularly taught a traditional way. So it kind of would be a case of, like, I mean, last year I got donated a ton of these like misprinted t-shirts. And I was like, well, guess we're going to be doing jersey, So it can be reverse engineered that way. So like, for example, like when I got those t-shirts, I thought of all the different ways I could develop with it, or kind of garments that I could sell. And I've been trying to think, I mean, bills to pay, mouths to feed. Been trying to think a very wearable, accessible, affordable. So I made a tons of fringe t-shirts. I made like these fun kind of like flapper dresses out of them with the fringe and the name of, the 2020s. She's roaring for sure. And yeah, it's kind of reverse engineered in a way. But with my I'm currently developing kind of higher end stuff as well, which is my kind of lockdown project, which is kind of going back to that original design process, which is starting with an idea, developing a product that way, rather than start with a product and developing it backwards. So, yeah.
So you're half of your work is kind of, you start with a garment which is already made and you're transforming it, but you're also moving into starting with ideas and making specific garments.
Yes, so I kind of have two parallel, I guess you could call ranges. I guess I have my ready to wear, which is what's in my studio. It's everything under £100. It's on my rail. And then what I do as well with all my garments across the board is I write down physically how long each item's taken. So if you're getting an item that's, say, I don't know, it's £30, I put down it's been 3 hours amount of work. It's very clear, very kind of open way of working. I find it kind of helps contextualize the work a little bit. So I have my sort of ready to wear, which is everything under 100. It's where I've kind of taken an old t-shirt and done something with it to flip it. Then I have my sort of what I call my black label range, which is what I've been working on under lockdown. It's been my little top secret project for the past couple of years, quite frankly. Yeah, so that's all very design based, and it's sort of semi-couture, a lot of hand stitching, a lot of patchwork. And it's where I've started off with a theme, then developed an idea for a garment, and then looked through what I have in my my hoard of fabric to see what kind of matches it, what can I work with. And yeah, I'm looking at a couple of pieces just now, and I'm like, it's getting there.
So you mentioned a bit about how you kind of like price your garments, and like there's that element of transparency there. I was wondering if maybe you could tell us a bit more about like the House of Black and like the ethos, and what is that an important part of the identity of the brand? Yeah.
So within House of Black, my ethos is everything as zero waste as much as possible. I am one man. But I try to do as much as I can. My kind of sort of way of phrasing it is I try to do the most with the least. So I try and upcycle anything that comes towards me. I mean, literally, my family has to guard their clothes with their lives. I will you know, take a pair of scissors to it. Not in an angry way, in an upcycling way. But yeah, so I kind of try to kind of take the challenge of anything that comes my way. I try and do something with it. And yeah, so it does have its hoarder tendencies, but I quite like the fact that I can kind of transform anything from nothing, you know. I have my own little studio shop over in Hidden Lane down in Finiston in Glasgow. And yeah, obviously not there just now. But yeah, so I've been trying to like build that up. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at. And I think that's what I love so much about recycling, is because you can experiment all you want and it's kind of guilt-free. You know, if you mess up a design, if you can just cut it apart, reuse it for something else, you know. And I think that freedom is what I love the most about sustainable fashion, is just you can try and make something, and even if you fail, you can make it into something else. So that's a long route for a shortcut, sorry.
Great tagline at the end. So you kind of mentioned how you have like this physical shop in Finiston, but also you've got like your website and like an Instagram.
Yes.
So and maybe you could talk a bit about like how COVID's affected your designing and maybe your business, and then how you kind of approach like the digital space as well.
This lockdown has definitely made me kind of think, do you know what? Why not get a bit more experimental? You know, you have all these materials at your disposal that no one else wants, essentially. Why not have fun and experiment? And I think it's where your box came in real handy for that, believe me. It was at the right place, the right time. And yeah, I'm trying to have fun with that a bit more. I like to think of myself as the Dr. Frankenstein of fashion, like hacking up clothes and putting them back together again. But yeah, so the other part was like in the name of digital, which is definitely has changed how fashion's presented, which I think is really exciting to me, because it's kind of even the space a little bit. You know, I saw in one of your other interviews, I can't remember which designer, unfortunately, they mentioned sort of the bigger houses kind of struggling with presentations and fashion shows and that kind of thing. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that, you know, moving forward, there isn't even competition. Like you can do a fashion film, which is one model, and or if you're a fashion designer, you know, that I mean myself, unfortunately, I'm not really the figure for my ladies, unfortunately. But you know, I think you can design, you could literally start yourself as a model, standing in front of the camera, sell a garment, become a business, you know, which if I had thought 10 years ago was possible, I mean, it's kind of crazy that you can compete with the big leagues.
So you mentioned the upcycling pack that we sent you. I was wondering if you could take us through your first impressions when you got it.
Totally. Well, first of all, y'all did me good. Y'all did me real good with that box. I believe me, yeah. I opened it up, and honestly, the amount of stuff that was in it was insane. Like it was kind of it just kept going. Like it was Mary Poppins bag. I was like, how did y'all fit that? I mean, I'm good at folding, but that was impressive. What I did was I took the sort of big bulk of fabric that I had. So I had tons of remnants, and I think I sent you a bunch of pictures as well. And then I kind of took the bulk of kind of like, there was like pink fabrics and blues and everything like that. And then I wanted to try and bulk it out, you know, just get kind of more fabric out of it. So I kind of deconstructed a couple of the garments. There was a pair of shorts, I believe, that I took apart. There was a jacket I took the sleeves off of. And then I decided from there, my approach would be to do a technique called subtraction cutting, which is, for the long story short, it's a very experimental method of getting kind of quite architectural shapes, but in quite a simple way of cutting. It was invented by a guy called Julian Roberts. That's what I want to do. I want to make a subtraction cut dress. And for that, you need like a big length of fabric. And what I did was I patchworked as much of the fabric as I could together to then make this kind of like duvet shape. And what you do is you essentially cut you lay the front of your bodice and the back of your bodice, and you try and join them up at the side seam. And that makes the dress, which sounds super simple, but your placement on the fabric just determines the design. So yeah, so this was me kind of hopping back into my experimental roots a little bit, you know, trying to see, it's you don't quite know what you're going to make until it comes out. So you can kind of plan a little bit, but it's really experimental. So it was a case of just cutting it out and seeing how we go. So yeah, and then I made my dress with all the kind of scraps of fabrics and bits and bobs. And I then used, I think it was yellow bias binding that y'all gave me as well, around the armholes, the neck, and I think that was me finished. Yeah.
You said a little bit about using clothes as the starting process. I guess maybe you could speak a little bit more about your relationship to specific materials, and like, so you kind of like, how do you source them? What things do you lean towards? What do you enjoy working with?
Jersey, like t-shirts. I love doing t-shirt fringe on just about anything. I actually did a whole separate garment. It's like a fringe jumper.
Oh, that's so fun.
So this jumper was in the box, and then there was a whole bunch of t-shirts as well. So I've taken the fringe and crocheted it. Yeah, so it's like 3 t-shirts in there. So I love jersey. I love denim. Denim's wonderful. Really versatile kind of fabric. And I really love patchwork. I do a lot of patchwork in my kind of higher end stuff. For me, it's just really interesting to kind of bring all these clashing prints and clashing colors. This skirt I'm working on here, so you can see it's got patchwork. Sort of scraps and bits. And so yeah, I really like working with materials that maybe essentially wouldn't go together traditionally, but making a new textile from patchwork. So that's kind of my favorite textile at the moment, is making my own.
So you've kind of been working in this like sustainable tradition for a while, and we're seeing more and more kind of traction and attention moving towards that. But how do you imagine the future of fashion?
I think the future of the fashion is it's sustainable, you know, really. I mean, I feel like in this day and age, there is no reason for you to go spend a fortune on fabrics as a designer, particularly when starting out. There is no need for you to go spend a couple of thousand on fabric. You go to your local charity shop, you get yourself a bunch of materials, you buy yourself a box, you buy yourself a wonderful box, get everything you need. Like, honestly.
What's next for you?
So I'm working on 2 ranges at the moment. I'm working on my ready-to-wear stuff, which is hopefully when my wee shop is ready to open again. But it is available on my website, houseofblk.co.uk. And I'm also working on, like I said, my black label range, which is kind of a semi-couture. It's where I'm making my own textiles. It's where I'm doing beadwork. It's where I'm making my own feathers and fabric. You know, it's really experimenting with fabric and textiles. And yeah, I'm excited about that because it lets me have fun with it. Yeah, you know, and lockdown's been a great opportunity to kind of experiment and have a bit of escapism. I think escapism is really important in times like this. I think people can often write off fashion as frivolous or the arts is unnecessary. I mean, we've seen that in the name of funding for theatre and the arts, you know. But I think in times like these, escapism is essential because it just brings hope and it brings a little bit of colour to an otherwise bleak situation. So, I mean, for me, I found escapism through making these clothes, and yeah, I hope everyone else is just. I think we're going to have a bit of a renaissance period after this. You know, it's going to be the Roaring '20s, hopefully, properly, just without the no alcohol ban. Ideally.
Brilliant. Well, what a lovely way to end. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.
You mentioned your website, but can people follow you on Instagram as well? Yeah.
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram under at House of BLK. So it's HOUSEOFBLK. And then my website is houseofblk.co.uk. And yeah, you can find my little shop once we're allowed to open down in the Hidden Lane in Finniston and Glasgow. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much, David.
Thank you so much again. It's been a wonderful project. So happy to be involved.